Thanks for the introduction here. Thanks to the Stellar team for having us here and for organizing this really great event. We'll call forth the rest of the panel here, but we've got, in no particular order, we've got Sebastian Siseles, who's the CEO of Vesio, comes all the way from Argentina.
That's right.
We also have Ibrahim Abdulhussein, who comes all the way from Istanbul, Syria, actually. Yeah. Istanbul or Syria and Turkey. We'll be hearing more about his story, which is quite fascinating. We've got Camila Rioja, who's the CEO of the Plexus Institute and hails from the great city of Brasilia. Woo, yay, hey. That's where I live right now, so I'm a bit biased. And then last but certainly not least, we have Justin Norman, who is founder and host of The Flip. And Justin's been on a kind of a 3-week documentary filmmaking tour of exploring stablecoin adoption in South America, which we're very excited to get kind of the into the details on. So with that, so we're going to be talking about local solutions or like global solutions, local impact. We're kind of building specifically for emerging markets. What are some of these trends? How are some of these trends like playing out in local markets, in emerging markets like Brazil, like in the Middle East, like in Argentina? And we're going to be hearing more about that in a lot of granular detail today. So maybe I'd like everyone to take just 30 seconds, maybe give yourself a quick introduction and your project. And then we're going to go around a bit more and talk a bit more in depth about your kind of what you guys are focusing on. But maybe take 30 seconds quick, introduce yourself.
So shall I start?
Yes, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sebastian Siseles, CEO of Vesio. We are a non-custodial wallet built on and probably fair to say built by Stellar. We, in simple words, we give our users total control over their finances. At Vesio, you can receive payments, store money, increase your money with rewards in the near future yield, and spend money locally. So we like to say earn global, spend local.
Awesome. And Ibrahim?
Yep. My name is Ibrahim Abdulhussein. I'm from Syria. I am the CEO and the co-founder of DigiBank. DigiBank is an on-ramp solution, but it's providing physical liquidity points to cash in and cash out funds. We have more than 2,000 liquidity points covering the MENA region, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, Egypt, Libya, and all these places. The story started in 2021 when I wanted to send money to my father. It was a nightmare. I couldn't send the funds. So I started to think about sending the funds using crypto. But then I figured out even if I send crypto to my father, they cannot buy stuff with it. So the idea of DigiBank came from here. I started the app and I started the first liquidity point in Syria, and we started to cash in and cash out, and it started to grow. We have 31,000 users now in the MENA region, and it's growing.
Amazing. Mila?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here in Rio de Janeiro. My name is Camila Rioja, and I'm the executive director and founder of Plexus Institute. Plexus is an institute of science and technology whose mission is to democratize access to the benefits of emerging tech. One of the use cases that we are pushing forward and focusing right now is community banks, municipality banks, and because of that, of course, community currencies. I'm very much excited to be here discussing about this topic with all of you today. Brazil has 5,400 municipalities. Each one of them is composed by a very rich myriad of individuals with their own and unique aspects, with a biodiversity that supports them, with different ways of interacting and exchanging. And that's why we're here today to discuss with you possible pathways to advance this opportunity and agenda.
All right, Justin.
Thanks, Aaron. My name is Justin Norman. I am producing a series on global stablecoin adoption. So I think everyone just saw a trailer here a couple of minutes ago. And the quick background for me is I lived and worked across Africa for about 10 years. And, I saw very clearly that the stories that were being told about markets across the continent are not very well understood. And with respect to stablecoins in particular, I see a lot of people talking with a lot of excitement about stablecoin adoption, but I know that the conditions on the ground that's driving adoption are not very well understood. So, we've made it our mission to go to places, as you saw, like Argentina and Bolivia and Nigeria and elsewhere, to really bring to life the user-centric stories of what's actually happening on the ground. Why are people using stablecoins and how it's impacting their lives? And we proudly partnered with Stellar on that, so I'm very glad to be here.
So, Justin, I want to stick with you here because for this next question, because I feel like you have, over the course of your research and your time, really, documenting adoption of this technology in some of these markets, you've gotten a really good kind of like ground level understanding of what does the adoption actually look like, what are the actual pain points, and I think there's a lot of folks in the blockchain industry that like they sort of understand that these are issues, that they're problems, that there's problems that they're trying to solve, but they may not be like super intimately familiar with them enough to be able to like address them properly, maybe we'll say. Would love your reflections on, you've been around the continent last 3 weeks, but would love your reflections a bit more on like what's real, what's not, like where are the pain points, what are the success stories? Maybe really quick, just give us an overview on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on what market and what use case we're talking about. And I think that that's one of my primary takeaways. And what's very interesting in the stablecoin context is everyone says with great excitement that it's this global technology or default global. But I think what really matters is that the local context and the adoption depends on that culture, those problems that are being solved. I was just in Bolivia last week, and Bolivia has dollar shortages. And so I saw agricultural importers, very traditional businesses, using stablecoins to pay their suppliers. And these are 30-year-old businesses that didn't know anything about blockchain and had to figure out how to use Binance peer-to-peer in order to just be able to access dollars to continue their business. In Argentina, I think a lot of people talk about hyperinflation, but I think hyperinflation was a little bit lower down on the list. I learned in terms of, some of the reasons why people are using stablecoins. There's, of course, taxes and distrust of government, and the hyperinflation has went away a little bit. So, I think overall, though, my lesson, and, Seb, I don't want to speak on Argentina. Maybe you should speak more about that. But I think overall, my takeaway ultimately is that, I didn't see, and I don't see this distinct like on-chain or off-chain world. I see this deep entanglement and deeply intertwined world where, stable coins are enabling people to spend money locally and things are moving more seamlessly from on and off ramps. I think that that's really the most important thing for me, is that I'm not seeing like distinct stablecoin usage. I'm seeing it plugged into an existing way in which people operate and spend. And that relationship is deeply intertwined and I think needs to be like leaned into more, as opposed to saying the future is completely on chain.
Then maybe Sebastian, we'll kick it over to you since we're on the topic of Argentina. We'd love your reflection on that, and then maybe tell us a bit more about maybe what you're seeing on the ground and how maybe Vesio is contributing to some of these solutions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, as Justin was saying, in Argentina, the use of stablecoin nowadays is not much about hyperinflation. It's more about protection and access to US dollar, OPEC US dollar. But this is like very recently. A few years ago, many of you here know what Argentina was going through, and having access to USDC or USDT was a matter of survival rather than speculating with US dollar or Argentinian pesos. On the other hand, just for you to know, in only 1 year, Argentina had 200% of inflation. In Brazil, probably you had 200% in 10 or 12 years. So in Argentina, it was a matter of survival. In Brazil, it's probably something more about empowerment and convenience. So two very similar markets, neighbors, are using stablecoins or have been using stablecoins completely differently. If many of you were here early this morning, you probably heard Daniel saying that the stablecoin was firstly used to store money and now is being used. So we are working on to here with my tech team that are here in the front. We are working on providing our users more and better ways in order to off-ramp this USDC having there. So we are currently enabling people to make PIX payments, QR payments, withdraw via MoneyGram is a trusted partner that we have, withdraw to bank accounts, and not giving an announcement, but because we are finishing our testings, but in a couple of weeks, we are going to be the very first wallet under Stellar, allowing people to use card converting crypto to fiat at the sales point. This is something, again, if you remember early this morning, the former president of the Central Bank of Brazil said that Nubank was about to work on that. Well, we are releasing it in a couple of weeks.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thanks for that. We'll be on the lookout for that. Thanks for the scoop. Maybe Ibrahim, let's go over to you. Maybe tell us a bit more about like how you're trying to provide kind of these last mile financial services to your users in these underserved regions.
Yep. Where I come from is very different. The context our country passed 14 years of war. We don't have banking infrastructure at all. We don't have MoneyGram. We don't have Western Union. The only way in our country to receive funds, we're using the Hawala. I don't know if you are familiar with Hawala offices. It's a traditional way to send and receive funding. It's 1,000 years old. It depends on trust between merchants to send and receive money from country to country. What we wanted to do is to use stablecoins as a settlement, international settlement layer to receive to help people who want to send remittances to Syria, for example, or Iraq or Yemen, to use stablecoins, and then we connect them with physical liquidity points where people can go and take the money in cash, because they don't trust stablecoins, they don't trust any technology, they don't have banks, they don't know the concept of banking, the concept of having a wallet that your money is there, so they have to see the funds in their hand. Merchants there and markets, they don't accept credit cards, they don't accept debit cards, they don't accept any form of digital payment, so they have to see the money cash in their hands. That's why we founded a way that you can have the cash out using receipts. As an example, I can now fund my DigiBank wallet with USDC. Then I can send the funds to Syria, and I can send to my father a receipt containing a PIN code. My father will go to the liquidity point showing them the PIN code, and he will receive the funds immediately. This facilitated or made the user experience for non-tech people very, very easy. So they don't have to deal like with peer-to-peer to liquidate their coins, or they don't have to install an app to check out the funds and so on. So they only have a PIN code. They go to the liquidity point, show the PIN code, receive the funds. If they have the ability, if they are tech savvy, or they have the ability to download the app, that's good. But if they don't, it's okay. Even if they don't have smartphone, they can receive it using SMS. Even if they don't have phone at all, they can receive it in a printed form, and they can go and cash out the funds.
So you, in a sense, you've almost maybe recreated, or you've rebuilt kind of a Western Union type of distribution model where there was nothing before, right?
Yeah.
You've allowed where the end user can go to this physical jurisdiction, show this code, and then basically claim their cash.
Yep.
So they don't necessarily be interacting with any kind of blockchain transactions or stable coins. They're just showing a code and claiming a cash,
Yep.
like you might do at a Western Union. But I guess the difference is that in this part of the world, there is no Western Union. Like that's just not an option, right? So you basically use this network to create like an alternative.
Yep, it's very similar to Western Union and MoneyGram. The difference is all the settlement is done using stablecoins under the hood. So we abstracted all the technicalities of crypto, blockchain, and stablecoins for users, so they can focus on only cashing in and cashing out.
Amazing. Camila, let's turn to you. Tell us a bit more about the Aratu project that you're working on, and also some of the work that you've been doing with community banks, community currencies, this type of thing. Tell us a bit more about that.
Interesting, because we just took like a trip down different ends of that are needed for this type of social solution, right? We need to understand the dynamics, the social dynamics, how they take place. This is going to impact in the type of infrastructure and tech that you're able to plug and play, the readiness of the market when it comes to solutions. But Brazil, it's something very unique and particular, right? I very much like to start by saying we're 205 times the size of Switzerland. So just imagine that, like for a second, and try to imagine that we could decentralize the service providing for communities, right? To extent that is modularized and supplies or attends the necessities of each one of those communities with a particular level of individuality. When it comes to Aratu, this is one pilot that we are running in the northeast region of Brazil. The idea is like helping strengthen an existing community of mainly women who harvest Aratu, which is a type of like a crustaceous? Crustaceous? What's the name of like crabs?
Crabs, right?
So they harvest the crabs and they need some sort of like support. But the interesting part of this project is that community currencies in Brazil, they touch both the world of public goods, but also like the world of like individual and private dealings. Whenever you pay social benefits using community currencies, which is something that does happen in Brazil, right? You're dealing with public goods. So you need to have like a certain level of like compliance, of transparency, and the given use cases, right? That they are supposed to touch or not touch at. So to that regard, we do like a joint work, and this pilot is an official pilot and part of the Brazilian network of blockchains. So what we are trying to, prove is some sort of like initial methodology that is going to showcase how public goods management on chain for the purposes of supporting communities could eventually like take place on a greater scale. This already exists in Brazil to the extent that 180 community currencies, they already exist on Web2. And we have partnered with an institution that is related to them to, explore this use case and path forward. So this is very much interesting, and to the point that we see, because we're democratizing access to the actual benefits of emerging technology. When we say to the people, hey, you don't need to worry about what's underneath the hood. We're taking care of it. We are making sure that this is transparent. We're making sure that this is reliable. We are making sure that this is like auditable. We're making sure that this is compliant with the existing legislations. And we are using this knowledge, we are using this technology to offer something in your hands that allows the money to flow where it needs to flow, just so we get the support that we need, that we buy what we need to have access to. We also want to further explore on the V2 of this pilot the different ways that like credits for this type of communities that can occur. So I would say very straightforward, like the success, the end goal of this initial pilot is to be able to demonstrate the transparency of dealing with public goods for the social benefit on a blockchain. This is victory number one. And moreover, not causing any type of like harm to the existing good work that the Web2 has done to provide for this type of individuals and societies. So this is one. The second is, okay, technology is implemented, the transparency is verified. What can this emerging technology do to further expand the use cases, the access to credit, the reliability, the expansion to other underserved communities? in a way that maybe in a very, very, very far and remote area of this country that is 205 times the size of Switzerland, the individual has a very good UI and UX that maybe even an illiterate person can have access to financial services and products in a reliable fashion in the same time or in the same way that we would have access by using our very good and top-notch like banks.
So I like what you're describing here because I think it's a really good example of taking something that already exists in the the real world, if we can call it that, and these community currencies. There's already hundreds of these things in existence in Brazil. They've been being used for 10, 20, 30 years by these communities. There's real users. You don't have to like bootstrap a community out of nothing to like, hey guys, use this token to transact. Like they're already using these things, and you're just using this technology to bring some additional benefits to what already exists, right? The auditability, the transparency, the programmability, et cetera. Maybe Sebastian, I'm gonna turn to you here, but when you're thinking about kind of the product design and how do you make sure that how can you design these products for for folks who are not crypto power users? Like these are everyday people that they don't have the same level of knowledge that maybe people in this room have, but how do you go about designing products for this level of mass adoption in the context of SEO?
Well, that's actually a great question because none of our users needs to know anything about crypto. Actually, when you want to go mainstream, you need to develop products easy to use, friendly, and our company is trying to keep as far as possible from these fanatic crypto guys. Because we want to bring solutions to the real people, to the people that needs to protect themselves against inflation, to people that needs to travel abroad and have all their finances in the pocket. And that's our vision. I mean, work and develop products easy to use without trying to teach people what crypto or blockchain is about. I want to give you an example. I have a very close friend. He knows nothing about crypto. I asked him to send me $3,000 to my bank account yesterday. So I have the proof here. I'm a lawyer, so I have evidence. So he sent me the money. The money arrived today, this morning. It cost him $10. It cost me $25 to receive. Just imagine that or move that into the Stellar blockchain. 5 seconds, almost zero cost, complete transparency, and I mean, it's no-brainer. I don't need to explain anyone nothing about blockchain, but to tell them free or almost free, fast, transparent. That's it.
Amazing. And then Justin, I want to ask you one question, then we'll turn back to Ibrahim for the final word here. But as you've been on this mission of just trying to document and understand stablecoin adoption here, I really want to get your takes on what we've heard from the panel so far, and also like what do you see as maybe the really kind of like the secret sauce for like really driving adoption here? Like what do you see as maybe the catalyst, and is it something that might be intuitive to people that in this audience? I mean, they may not have already been thinking about this.
Yeah. I think what I like about being on this panel and hearing everyone talk is that everyone's focused on the last mile user, on localization of that experience, all of these projects, and the way in which the products are being launched and the way in which the users are experiencing them is very unique to each context in which they're building. And I think that's a primary takeaway for me, right? Like all of this excitement about stablecoins in general is driven by, I think, like the infrastructure layer, right? Like, how much volumes is happening with this stablecoin or, Circle going public or everyone's launching a new layer one, all of this stuff. But what I think is like the most important thing to me is that last mile user experience, right? Because, the barrier to adoption today still is, there's a lot of layer one fragmentation. There's too many stablecoins. No one who's normal knows how to send money back and forth to each other, right? And so a lot of the work now needs to be on how to localize the experience for the context in which your users need to solve a problem, right? And people on the stage are doing that, and that I think is my takeaway from spending a lot of time at the last mile as well.
And Ibrahim, any final reflections from you, and then maybe what's next on this the digibank journey here? What's next for the users? Once they become comfortable with this infrastructure you've built, like what comes next on the roadmap?
So one thing we've noticed that we have a project with GIZ, the German Development Agency. We're distributing salaries for more than 1,000 health workers operating 6 hospitals in Syria. First, when they received their salaries, they cashed out them immediately at the same hour because they didn't know what is stablecoin, what is USDC. But now, after like 7 months, we started to see an increasing number of people, of them keeping their funds in USDC. They are not cashing out the funds immediately. So the first step, I think, is trust. We need to start in an abstracted way to tell people this is a technology that you can trust, you can try it, you can buy stuff with it. Then I think it will expand, it will scale and grow. For DigiBank, we're looking to expand beyond MENA, and we're looking for partnerships. As Justin said, that every context has its own unique circumstances. So we're trying to partnership with unique partners in each country to expand our liquidity network.
Amazing. Well, very inspiring work that all 4 of you are doing. So keep it up. Definitely, I applaud the work and appreciate you being here on stage with us and sharing what you're working on with the rest of our audience here. So Justin, Camila, Ibrahim, Sebastian, thanks for your time today. And thanks everyone here for your attendance.